Hello, Earth Angels, and welcome back to another episode of Alignment Academy. If you're new here, welcome. I'm your host, Kristen, and I am a mindset coach, business mentor, angelic channel, and I am obsessed with blending business, spirituality, mindset, and helping you step into your soul's purpose so that you can live a life that feels super fucking fulfilling and that you are proud of. Today is a big episode because one of the biggest things that I teach on my platform is overcoming the fear of being seen. And I would say that one of the biggest things that stops people from wanting to be seen is feeling like they are going to look cringe, feeling like they're going to be embarrassed, unsure of what your friends and family are going to think. It kind of all goes together. So we're going to be talking about my journey and what it felt like internally to feel super cringe online and have no following and just be showing up like I did, and the journey to where I am now, where I can speak confidently online. I do have a following. I have over 100,000 followers on TikTok and Instagram. Not that that means anything about me. It just means that I learned how to build a business and kind of like what that internal glow up looks like and what you can do to find your confidence and show up confidently online. I do feel inside me percolating that this is going to be a little bit of a tough love episode, because truly, if you want to build a business, being cringe, looking cringe is just a part of it. Does that make sense? Like, it's literally just a part of the journey of what it's going to take to get there. And what I've learned from working with so many entrepreneurs and also potentially working with a lot of entrepreneurs and seeing like who invests and who doesn't invest and who makes it and who doesn't make it. I am just a big noticer, right? I just take note of things. And what I've noticed is that the people that make it in the entrepreneurship realm, the people who make it in this industry are the girlies and the gentlemen that are like, I am going to stop at nothing to make this possible. I don't care how dumb I look. I don't care how embarrassing it is. I don't care what my family and friends think. It's like this energy of like, I am so fucking all in. I don't care what it takes. I will do anything to get there. I'm going to be so unfiltered right now. Truly, not everyone has that in them. Like, genuinely, when I talk to people and they're like, yeah, I really want to be a coach. I want to be a 6-figure entrepreneur. I want to be quitting my corporate job, but they can't get past like an investment, or they can't get past showing their face on social media. I just like know it. I'm like, this job, because of how much hardship I've gone through and how much inner work I've done, I just know that if you're not 1,000,000% committed to it, you're just probably not going to be able to make it past that first year. And the reason I'm telling you this is not to tear you down or like to be negative about the industry. I just think that people are not real about how hard it is, because in order to hold so much success, to hold a lot of money, the amount of failure and the amount of rejection and the amount of people that are going to make fun of you, it's like equal. The amount of success you have is also equal to the amount of rejection, failure, and feelings of embarrassment you've held. And my true feelings about this is that the reason people have not reached success is because they're not able to hold and move through those feelings of failure, rejection, unworthiness. Oh my gosh, it's not working. Like, they just don't have the tools. Honestly, I'm going to actually go ahead and just say this. If you are not doing the inner work, I don't really know how else you would get over the fear of judgment or the fear of being seen or fear of looking cringe, because that is the only way I was able to get through it, is literally by doing inner work. Like, it is so cringy at first when you show up and you're like talking to your Instagram and you're following like you have so many followers and you literally don't, and you know that. I understand the amount of delusion that it takes to do that, because I had that delusion. But your desire to have success in your business literally just has to be greater than like your feelings of fear of like what other people are going to think of that. So I feel like I just went on a tangent and I'm not even really sure what I just said. I'm not going to lie. This is one of the least prepared I felt for an episode. But when I tapped into my spirit guides and was like, what do the girlies need to hear? They were like, you just need to talk about your journey. Just talk about what it was like. Talk about the mindset. Talk about the energy of action that it takes, because it is going to motivate some people. I really want to start at the top top of this episode and really explain to you guys what is energetically happening under the feelings of somebody looking cringe to you or other people thinking you're cringe. And the reason I want to explain this to you is because I feel like the more you guys understand the psychology behind like judgment and feelings of cringe, the less you'll take it personally. At least that's how it works for me. The more I was able to unpack and understand what was going on when people were calling me cringe or I thought something was cringe, it gave me more self-awareness to actually see reality how it was. And no one's talking about this. So let's talk about it here. The first thing is when somebody calls you cringe, I want you to just remember that cringe is a piece of your shadow. Now, if you're not familiar with shadow work, we should probably start there. There's two parts of your personality, and it's the ego part, which you want to think of like the top of your personality, the part that you show with the world. Like, I'm Kristen, I have black hair, I'm an entrepreneur. It's all these things that you identify with. And then we have our shadow self. You want to think of shadow as like an equivalent to shame. All the things that we got shamed for in our life. And because we got shamed for these things in our life, we want to push them down and we don't want to be called these things so that we don't get love taken away from us. I want to kind of give you an example of this because I feel like it will be easier to understand. Actually, we could just use a real life example of mine. Yeah, this would be good to share because it's pretty vulnerable and, we just get super vulnerable on this pod. So, let's just go with it. When I was in third grade, I think, I had a boy. I went to an all-white school, lived in like this very uppity, neighborhood in Florida. I went to this all-white school and there was this boy who made fun of my skin color. And he'd be like, why is your skin brown? Like, he would call me Pocahontas. Like, he would just have all of these like negative names because my skin was brown. And he would make me feel a lot of shame and not loved for this part of me. And he would also say things like, why are you Asian? Or just like asking me things that I like didn't know how to answer as a third grader. And this is like what happens when you start doing inner child and shadow work. You remember very specific parts of your childhood that like caused a lot of pain and made you feel just really sad. And I remember him just like being like, why are you Asian? And just like asking like, how do you even answer that as a third grader? Like, fuck that guy. Anyway, I remember feeling a lot of shame around my skin color. So basically this part of me being Asian now equaled shame. Because I didn't want to be seen as this, I was now going to push this down very, 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 very deeply. Now, when people would ask me what my ethnicity was, which still happens very often, when I was younger and before I did a lot of shadow work, I would get really uncomfortable with that question. I didn't know why at the time, but it was because I was so ashamed of being Asian. And I would usually actually make things up. Like, I know that sounds really bad, but that is actually what happens when you feel a lot of shame and you have shadow. You will actually like give some white lies because you don't want to get love taken away for these things about yourself that you think are shameful. And so I would say like my mom is from Israel, if you don't know, and my dad's from the Philippines. He's also from Germany. Like, I'm just super mixed, but I would like make something up. I'm pretty sure I'd be like, I'm from Hawaii, or like I'm from something that sounded less shameful for me. Sometimes I'd be like, I'm white. Like, I'm clearly not fucking white, but like I would just make up things. I would even just not know what to put on SAT tests and stuff when you had to like fill in the bubbles. Sometimes I just didn't know what to put because like some of it, my family is white and like my mom's from Israel, my dad's from the Philippines, but my grandpa is from Germany. Like, it's really confusing, right? Like, I don't even know what I am. And so I would just say the thing that felt the most lovable, which was like white usually. And so that was kind of what shadow is. Now, I know that we just kind of went on a tangent about shadow, but let's bring this back full circle to cringe. So when we don't want to be called cringe, it's because in society, being called like cringe is basically being called shameful. It's like, oh, she looks cringe. Like, that's shameful. Like, that's embarrassing, right? We don't want to be called cringe. So what happens, because our subconscious mind is basically in charge of 95% of our reality, our mind will not let us do anything that will make us look cringe, aka shameful, because shame is one of the lowest vibrational feelings. So what is happening when someone calls you cringe? Really, it's actually a them problem, and it's just their shadow being projected onto you. Let me explain and give you another example because we love to learn from examples on here. Let's say I am with my friend who is a content creator and I am like making a little dancing TikTok and she's watching me do this. She's not going to look at me and say, Kristen looks so cringe, because low key, she's a content creator too. And she's comfortable dancing on her stories, making that TikTok with me. She's comfortable doing exactly what I'm doing. Now, let's say I'm with another friend who is not a social media girly and she thinks that people who talk into their phone are super cringe. When I am making a dancing TikTok in front of her, she is probably going to be calling me cringe because she is not comfortable doing what I am doing. However, friend A is comfortable doing what I'm doing, therefore it's not cringe. So when someone's calling you cringe, guys, this is the most important part of this podcast for you to understand that when someone is calling you cringe, it's because they are seeing you express a part of yourself that they are not comfortable expressing in themselves. I want to say that again. They are seeing a part of you expressed, right? They're seeing you be your authentic self and dance all silly, but they feel like if they were to do that, it would be shameful, they would be judged, and they wouldn't get love. So whenever we call someone cringe, or whenever we actually judge someone for that matter, it's just because we would be uncomfortable being that or looking like that, right? It's just, we always judge what we're judging within ourselves. So whenever someone is calling you cringe, it's just them projecting their shadow. And I know that maybe doesn't help you heal it. Like, I'm aware that it takes deep inner work, but logically, you need to know and understand that it's not personal and you cannot control other people's opinions of you. And this comes to my next point of like really overcoming the fear of judgment when you're doing this. How you do it is by accepting that you can't control it, right? Like, it's kind of counterintuitive because you're like, you want to overcome feeling judged, but the only way you can overcome it is by accepting that you have no control. It's weird because the truth is that no matter what you do, even if you try to be careful about every single thing that you say and put out into the world, someone is still going to judge you based on their own projections, their own feelings, their own mindsets, how they were brought up, what they think is shameful, what they think is loving. Like, everyone is just projecting their own picture of their reality. I think a good way to wrap this up is to be like, stop fucking trying to control other people's perceptions of you because you fucking can't. Like, that's what it comes down to. The way that you do the inner work on this is by really tending to your shadow self. Now, that is like a whole other episode for another time. And honestly, this is more of like the work that we do inside of my coaching containers. I'm going to say specifically Scared to Seen. And if you're listening to this, this is actually the last week to enroll in Scared to Seen before we get started. So I'm going to just do a little shameless plug real quick and remind you that if you are an entrepreneur, a coach who is struggling with the fear of being seen and you're ready to show up on social media, join Scared to Seen. It is the last time I might run this. I'm hesitant to say this because I'm like 90% sure I'm not going to run this again, but I still might. But if you want to take this program and you know you can't show up online, I'm just going to say, how much longer are you going to deal with your own bullshit? Like, you need to either heal it or decide you don't want to be an entrepreneur, because there's literally no way you can become an entrepreneur if you can't show up online. It's just point blank, you just can't. So I'm going to invite you to step into your highest timeline, join Scared to Seen. There's a link below. It is my 8-week visibility accelerator. It has 8 group calls, 6 mindset modules, and social media modules side by side. You're going to be going through it, and you're going to be with a beautiful, loving group of entrepreneurs who are going to be by your side as you start showing up confidently and consistently on social media. I'm going to say, definitely, if you feel like you're on the commitment roller coaster where sometimes you want to show up, sometimes you don't, sometimes you get triggered, sometimes you feel super motivated, we're going to cut that bullshit out and teach you the actual inner work to be able to show up consistently and believe in yourself no matter the circumstances on your external reality. So link is below to join, and I hope to see you in there. Now that you understand most of the energetics and you know that you have to heal this through inner work, I think it would be helpful to walk you guys through my journey of like what it felt like internally to really show up online and like what I was feeling behind the scenes, just to help you feel less alone. Because the reason I've created so much content content around fear of being seen is because when I was struggling with this, like no one was talking about it. I didn't even have a word for it. I literally created the words fear of being seen, and I started posting so many TikToks about it, so many Instagrams. Like I'm sure somebody else was saying those words, but I could not find any content on it. This started really heavily when I started my business in 2020. You know, COVID had just hit. All the work that I was doing, like the freelance marketing and the yoga teaching, like obviously I couldn't do that during COVID. And I wanted to show up online and become a coach. And I've told this story plenty of times. You know, I announced my coaching page to my personal Instagram, like only 30 people followed me. I got so fucking triggered. I even saw people like sharing around my posts on that page. Like I saw at the time these two friends that I had, I went on a trip with them and I like accidentally opened one of her DMs because she was like, oh, like DM this other girl that I was with. And I was like, oh, I saw them sending my posts back and forth. So I felt like so judged, and it was like I had proof that I was being judged as well. I actually stopped being friends with one of the girls after that trip because I just couldn't handle it. Like I just like never spoke up for myself and I just felt so judged. After that, I went home and I went to try to start my business, and every single time I would pick up my phone or my camera to make a story, I would get like physically, I'd feel ill, honestly. Like that's what it feels like behind the scenes when you're struggling with the fear of being seen. Your body goes into an actual trauma response. Like I was in freeze. I felt disgusting. I felt like, oh my God, I'm so judged. Everyone hates me. I just felt so triggered by the world. Then I would like maybe delete my social media a lot. I would like post a story and I would like delete my phone, or I would like turn my phone off until the next day. Like I would do crazy stuff to try to re-regulate my nervous system. I was very like avoidant to my phone. Like, I didn't want to look on who was looking, and I just felt so judged. And sometimes this caused me to waste days or even weeks because I would post one thing and then I would like try to show up, but like I'd be so triggered that I couldn't. And then I would post one more thing like 3 days later. And then sometimes if it was really bad, I would post something a week later. Now, what I'm trying to say here is that it wasted a lot of time in between because my nervous system was so dysregulated that I would have to wait for my nervous system to re-regulate. Eventually, I was working with a coach and I was like, I am so fucking triggered. Like I have to figure this out. And this is when I started diving really deeply back into inner child work, because I did start it when I was like 18 years old. But then now I had like a purpose with the inner child work. I was like, I need to use inner child work to heal my fear of being seen. So I started using inner child work to give myself the validation that I needed, to give myself the love that I needed. I also started doing shadow work about all these words that I didn't want to be called. I didn't want to be called cringe. I didn't want to be called embarrassing, stupid, try hard. All of these words I had to take through shadow work. And this is the exact inner work I teach in Scared to Seen. So just join that program so I can teach you how to fucking heal and literally not let this bother you anymore. But the results that I saw were so insane, because what would happen is that it used to take me maybe 3 days to re-regulate, and then I would show up again, and then it would take me 2 days, and then it would take me 1 day, and then it would only take me one meditation later and I could show up again. What was happening was I was shortening the distance between trigger and showing up again. And that's really what healing is. It's not never getting triggered. It's just shortening the distance between trigger and action, right? It's shortening the distance between dysregulation and regulation. When you have tools to use, when you're starting to feel cringe, that's what helps you say, okay, I feel cringe. I'm going to go do my meditation. I'm going to go regulate my nervous system. And now you feel loved and validated inside, but nothing has changed outside. Guys, that's like what quantum jumping is. It's like nothing has changed outside, but inside you feel different. You feel successful. You feel validated. You feel loved. And that's what I would do over and over and over again. That's why I'll never stop preaching inner child work. I would do that. About 2 years, I was doing inner child work. I've talked about this so much. I was doing inner child work like 5 to 7 times a week for 2 years straight. During this time, there was a lot of evolution of my content, meaning I wasn't full-time in my business yet. Like I was full-time because like it was COVID and that's all I was doing, but I wasn't making full-time money. Like I remember even the first years, like some months I would make $3,000. Sometimes I would make $6,000. Sometimes I would make $2,000. Like I remember it was like really all over the place until I really like hit my consistent flow of money. And that's really normal. And during this time, there was like an evolution of content behind the scenes. I'm just like chugging along. I am trying to post as much as I can, like typically try to post 4 to 5 times a week. And then I was like doing inner child work literally every single day because I would be so fucking triggered by everything that was happening in my business. And I was so committed to like healing and just increasing my self-worth. And it really worked. Like truly, it really worked. But behind the scenes, what I was feeling when I was making content was like, this is not working. I would get like 3 likes on a post sometimes. I remember every single time that I would post, I would have to text like everyone in my family and be like, will you go please like my post? Will you please go save my post? So that I could get some engagement on it and I didn't feel embarrassed. That is the reality of like what it was like behind the scenes for me. You know, I know you might look at my account and you might look at how I show up online and you're like, oh, she's so authentic. She has so many followers. But the reason I am here is because I held myself through so many times where I had less than 1,000 followers and I showed up anyway. And that's what it's going to take for you to get the amount of followers and money, and followers doesn't even equal money, but like to get all those external things that you desire, it requires you holding yourself through all of those low moments where it feels like it's not working, where it feels like you look like a loser, where it feels like everyone's making fun of you. Those moments are strengthening you to be able to hold the success, right? Because everybody that you look up to, they're where they're at because they've overcome so much hardship and internal turmoil, and that has created the version of them that can hold all that success. Because the truth is that with more success, guys, like, are you okay with having tons of hate comments? Because I get tons of hate comments. I get tons of people telling me I'm fucking delusional and I'm doing the devil's work every day on TikTok. Like, I get tons of people telling me that Joe Dispenza is the devil and I'm preaching the devil's work. Like, you guys have no idea how much hate I get. But because I've trained myself, because I've dealt with so much of it and I know how to regulate my nervous system, I'm able to go forward and know it means nothing about me. I am quickly interrupting this episode to remind you guys that if you're a listener, which clearly you are, I have created a free meditation for all of you. This meditation was built out of my rock bottom when I needed to trust the universe and release a lot of anxiety I was feeling and I didn't know how. So I learned how to trust the universe, and I'm going to teach you how in this meditation. It's really practicing this feeling of being held and supported and remembering that you actually are held and supported by the universe in every single moment. All you have to do to get this meditation is to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, and then go ahead and head over to my podcast Instagram at Alignment Academy Podcast. Give it a follow and then message me on there with a screenshot of your rating or review, whatever platform you're listening on, and I will send you the meditation. Okay, now back to the episode. What I'm kind of trying to say is that my journey, even though it looks smooth from the outside, it was very, very rocky on the inside. There were moments where I just felt so embarrassed. And then I don't even want to tell you guys what happened when Reels came out. I was so mad that Reels came out because I'm like, I do not want to show up on video. I do not want to do this. And this is a really pivotal time in my journey too, because I think this is when I looked the cringiest, if I'm being honest. What happens when you start posting videos is that you don't know your style yet. You don't know if you're a dancer. You don't know if you're a talker. You don't know if you're a trender. You don't know what the style is. And the only way you find what your style is by trying them all out and then figuring out what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what feels cringy, what doesn't feel cringy, what's performing well, what's not performing well. There's a lot of factors involved, right? If you go back in my Reels, and I don't recommend it because they're so cringy, you can see, guys, like, I had no idea who I was online as an identity. And there's no way you're going to know who you are online other than just doing it. I say this to my clients all the time and I stand behind it, but I don't think you can hear it enough. You have to get it wrong in order to get it right. Meaning you're going to just have to try a whole bunch of stuff and say, yeah, I tried the dancing reels and that didn't feel good. And I tried the talking reels and that did feel good. And I tried the trend reels and that didn't feel good. I was doing trends. I was dancing on my stories. I was doing like really like embodiment, like moves. And that just wasn't me, by the way. Like, that was definitely not me, but I didn't know what my style was, but I just had to kind of find what was working. And so the journey from going to cringe from confident is literally not caring if you look dumb. Like I said, the very first thing I said on this podcast is like, whoever's going to make it are the people who are like, I will stop at nothing. I don't care how dumb I look. I don't care how much I have to pay money. I don't care how many bad coaches I hire. I don't care who makes fun of me. And that's the truth. Like, at those points, I was like, I don't care how dumb I look. I just have to grow this fucking business because I didn't have any other money at the time. Like, I had no plan B. I think that was actually a gift, because if I did have a plan B or a corporate job, I probably wouldn't have forced myself to show up in those very cringy, weird ways. But, you know, that's a story for another time. All I'm trying to say is that the evolution was very, very slow. You know, I got comfortable showing up on just like feed posts because that's all there was when I started my business. And I got really comfortable doing that. And I only had like 1,000 followers like at the end until Reels came. And then Reels actually were a gift because they helped me grow. go. But there was a whole evolution of just like trying and getting it wrong and feeling cringy and knowing I look dumb as fuck. But then like finally finding my voice of like, okay, I'm a teacher. I'm supposed to use my voice to activate. This is what feels the best. And it's going to be the same for you. I want you guys to know that the more content you make, the better you're going to be at making content. I think what we expect is like, you guys look at my content maybe and you're like, well, my reels don't look like hers, or the way I explain things is not as good as Kristen. Guys, I looked at my Instagram the other day. I had created 800 posts. I had posted my 800th post. So you're comparing your 20th post to my 800th post. That's not even fair to you. You know what I mean? Like, you have to allow yourself to be a beginner. There's no embarrassment in being a beginner. And if you feel embarrassed by being a beginner, then that's the shadow that you need to work on. Because if you just accept that you're a beginner and you're going to look dumb and you're going to be a little bit cringe and people are going to make a little bit of fun of you, now you just released all the resistance to it. The only reason you feel resistance to this, to looking cringe, to looking dumb, is because you are almost in denial that's going to happen. So what happens is we think, well, I don't want people to make fun of me. I don't want to look dumb. And then when it happens, we are in denial that it's going to happen. And then we feel so hurt that it happened. But what if you actually went into it saying, oh, you know what? I expect that people are not going to get me. I expect that people are going to make fun of me. I expect that I'm going to look a little cringe. And then it happens and there's no resistance because you've already accepted that it's just part of the journey. I've used this analogy before, but it's like going surfing and like not wanting to get into the cold water in California. It's just like, it's a part of it. You're going to have to deal with the shitty parts to have the beautiful parts. Long story short, going from cringe to confident is just a journey. It's a journey and there's new layers all the time. There's new levels of embodiment all the time. There's even times where I'm doing things that feel new, like launching a program or a membership. And I'm like, oof, this is still really uncomfortable talking about my program this much, or talking about money, or talking about how much, whatever. Like, there's new levels, but what you learn to do with doing the inner work to this is like, the more you do it, the easier it gets. I tell my clients who are struggling with showing up, every single time you post, it's going to get a little bit easier. Even if it's just by 1%, 10 posts, it just got 10% easier. That's what you have to remind yourself, is that the reason that showing up on social media and looking cringe and feeling like embarrassed feels so uncomfortable is because it's new. The good thing is our brain is meant to get used to things. That's how it's wired. That's how it's made. So the more you do it, the easier it gets, girl. Just keep on doing it. Keep on chugging along and it's going to get even easier. Your content is going to get better. Your content is going to be up leveled. I feel like I just reached a point in my business where I'm like ready to like up level and like my content to look super professional. And little by little, I'm trying to make that happen. You know, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen eventually. And so all of this to say, sometimes you just kind of have to suck it up and push post. Remember, it's not that deep and no one is thinking as deeply about your posts as you think that they are. And then also, if you're getting really dysregulated, like if you're feeling avoidant or you're in freeze response towards your social media, this is a clear sign that you need some nervous system work. If you feel really triggered every time you post, or you feel like you procrastinate posting, or you feel like you post and then you avoid your social media for days, those are all trauma responses. Freeze, fawn, you know, like those are all literal trauma responses. And so until you do that inner work that I'm talking about, like for literally this whole series of Alignment Academy podcasts, you're not going to change, because your body always will want to feel safe over doing the thing it desires to do. Showing up on social media doesn't feel safe. And so until you teach your body how to feel safe with the inner work, the inner child and shadow work, you're just not going to be able to move forward. I feel like that's a good place to end here. I think that what I want to kind of give you as an action item is, no matter where you're at in your business, like maybe you show up consistently already, or maybe you are sometimes consistent. Everyone can go make 30-second posts and post online. You have to teach yourself that it's easy. I used to say to myself, posting is so hard. It's so hard to be consistent. Now I'm like, it's not hard to be consistent. It's not hard to make a 30-second video and post it online. It's just not. And so I want you to prove to yourself that you can do hard things. Remember that if you actually listen to me and make a post, you can actually tag me in the post if you want, and I'll comment on it. If you make a post and post it, it's going to get 1% easier the next time you do it. I really want you guys to take your dreams seriously. I really want you guys to take your future seriously, because if you don't, nobody else will. No one cares if you're unfulfilled except you, right? This is a really dark thought that I had when I wanted to quit my corporate job. I was like so miserable in my cube, and I had this daunting thought that just like came into my mind of like, no one cares if I sit here for the rest of my life. Literally, even though my mom and my family want me to be happy, no one cares. No one cares but you guys. You have to advocate for your future. You have to advocate for your business. You go first and then the universe follows. You go first and then the people come. But you have to believe in yourself first. You have to post first. You have to promote yourself first. And that's when you're going to get that that mirror from the universe back. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me for, 30 minutes or however long this was again. I love spending my weeks with you. I hope this gave you the kick in the ass that you needed, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.